Okay, so as we've seen, conjunctions hook up words and phrases and clauses. They help sentences be linked together in logical little chunks. Now, prepositions are more about things' relationships to other things. I really like this idea that a preposition is anything you can do with a box.
Beside the box, in the box, out of the box, around the box, under the box, through the box.
All right, it has to be admitted, boxes are a little dull. Let's go to Mesa Verde, an ancient cliff dwelling in Colorado, and play with some prepositions there.
The Pueblos lived in the cliffs. We had to climb up a ladder to get there and through cracks in the rocks. I held on to the rail tight because I was scared. The kids were glad to be back inside the car.
So whether we're talking about a box or Mesa Verde or Greek, prepositions are words that describe the relationship of one thing to another.
Here are some prepositions in John 1. We saw there were 12 conjunctions, remember? There will be 17 prepositions, and you can see prepositions are very common. Really important to be able to recognize them. There aren't that many, but I tell you, man, if you're gonna put your energy in on learning certain words in Greek, learn the conjunctions and prepositions because you will see them over and over and over, and they give you your little clues to help you figure out how to make sense of a sentence. So here we go. In the beginning, in is in. And I want you to notice about every preposition that there's a word associated with it. It's a relationship word, right? So it has to relate to something. So in what? In the beginning. Or here we have prostantheon, with God. Here, in the beginning again, in arche, prostantheon, with God. Here's an important one, dia autou. Now this is di autou. There's a missing letter here. Actually, let's see if I can find one where it's fully written out. You can see there are a whole bunch of them here with the apostrophe. Remember the apostrophe? Do you remember what that meant? We've seen it before. It means there's a letter missing, right? Let's see if I can find dia somewhere where it's completely written out. Here it is. Dia Jesu Christu, right here, through Jesus Christ. Dia, that's the preposition. But as we see, there will be a lot of times when you may not have that last letter. They didn't want two alphas in a row here, evidently. Dia autou. So it just becomes di autou. So a letter is dropped. Okay, here's in auto, in him. Notice that in is very, very common. In the darkness. From God. Para theou. It's another preposition there. Eis martyrian. Unto a witness. Ace is like into, but it can have some other nuances. That's one thing we'll see about prepositions in Greek is that there's a lot of flexibility in terms of their interpretation. Peri is concerning the light. Okay, peri tou photos, concerning the light. Through him, di autou. Dia, right? The alpha's missing there. Peri, concerning again. Are you starting to see the repetition here? Ace, we've seen that already, right? Ace martyrian, into as a witness. Here it is, into the world. Ace ton kosmon. In the world, there's in again. Here's dia, through him. Okay, ace, into his own, unto his own. See, there's a lot of flexibility there. Ace ta anima. In the name, here we go again, ace. Ex, hematon, out of blood. Now, I want to point something important out here. Ex and ek are the same. This is a case where sometimes ek is written with a xi, sometimes with a kappa, and it depends on the letter that follows. There's no need, since we don't have to write it, to learn all the rules for that, but we just understand if you see ek or you see ex, it's the same thing. Here again, in hemin, para patros, from the Father. From peri again, concerning or about here. Here's a not very common preposition, opiso here, and improsthen. These are two prepositions that you won't see that much, but in John 1, we just so happens we see them a lot. Hopiso is after, imprastin is before. Notice again, there's always an object. After me, before me. Keep going. From or out of the fullness. Grace against grace. This is a very interesting preposition right here. We'll say more about it later. Diamouseos. Mouseos, we talked about this. Remember what that's called? Diaresis. It's that strange accent that means give this thing its own syllable. Mouseos. There we go. Dia through Moses. Dia Mouseos. And dia Jesu Christu through Jesus Christ. Dia. Ace. In the bosom. Pros auton, to him. X, there we go again. It could be ek or x. Here it's x, from Jerusalem. Preposition city, right? I mean, they're like everywhere. Here we are with peri again. Do you see how repetitive, though? Perisa autu, concerning yourself. Just got to learn these. In, ek. Kind of don't want to bore you with this, but it's so important that you see this repetition. In water. In hudati. Ha, behind. This is again that strange one. After or behind me. Opisomu. In Bethany. Peran. On the other side. That's another sort of unusual preposition. Peran. On the other side of the Jordan. Pros auton. To him. And huper is an important one. I don't think we've seen that yet. Concerning. Huper. Hopiso, imprastin, there we go again. 31, moving on. Dia, in, X. Okay, starting to see the patterns. Here's one. Here, we're missing a letter again. Ep. Okay, and the letter we happen to be missing here, and you can see the same thing happens here. And actually, this is the same preposition. Ep, F, ep are all forms of, let me see if I can find the full one down here. I hope so. It's epi, so I'll tell you. But because evidently, there it is. The very last verse, man. Epi. Okay, so that's what we were looking at up there, and we were missing some letters. We've seen that before, where they cut some of the letters off because of the letters that follow. Okay, so where were we? Here we were. Okay, so the spirit as a dove, ex uranu, out of heaven, and emenon, epauton, on him, epauton. Now again, that's a p. We're missing the iota there, but this apostrophe tells us. The reason that's F here has to do with this rough breathing and how the Greeks liked it to sound, but you don't need to worry about your pretty little head about that. That's a P. On whom. Here's ep again, in, moving along, ek, of course, out of. Do you seeing the repetition? Oh, pounding it into your head a little here. Hope not. This is para. We're missing an alpha, but here's the full form of that, para. So you can see that happens kind of a lot where, for whatever reason, para auto, they don't want to pronounce the alpha twice, it's just par auto. So they put a little parenthesis there. But that's para, no big deal, it means from. Here's para Ioannu, from John, out of the two. Pros is to or toward, to Jesus, pros tan Yesun. Into, ace again, into Galilee. From is apa, from Bethsaida, out of the city. Man, are you getting it? Are you getting it? In the law, from Nazareth, apa, right? Out of Nazareth, to or toward him, about or concerning him, in whom, just about through here. Here's a new one, pra. This isn't pros, but pra means before. Not a super common one either, but, proactive, right? Pra. Hupa, means under. Hupa tein sukein, under the fig tree. And again, notice every preposition has an object. It's always preposition, object. Okay, every one of them before you, right, in that case. Or here, under the fig tree, hupakato, the fig tree. Then, as we've seen in verse 51, we have epi, on the son of man here. Epi ton huion. All right. Well, you see how important these are. Just look at all that light blue as you look through. Look also at all the repetition. Remember, just 17 words here, 12 conjunctions. This is not a huge number of words, but these are so important because these are the pointers. They show up all over the place. These are the glue. So we're going to get into the meat of it this next lesson, but make sure that you have these down. They will really help you out. And while I'm bragging on Greek prepositions, let me also point out they will help you with your English. Look at all these cognates. A cognate is just a related word, but inside, obviously in is in. Dia means through. So we have a dia, a through. A gnosis in Greek is knowledge. So a thorough investigation to get knowledge, kind of diagnosis. How about parallel? Para is alongside. So a line alongside another line is parallel. Ace is into, and those of us who are try to listen to scripture carefully do not like eisegesis. Ace means into. That's when you're reading into the text instead of trying to hear what the text has to say to you. Pericardial is another example. My mother had a pericardial infection, and I knew what that was because I knew peri meant around. I knew it meant it had to be the sac around her heart that was infected. Ek, obviously, extrovert. There are all kinds of ek words. Anti is like against, right? So anti-gravity, anti all kinds of things. Huper means over. So hyperbole is like, laying it on too thick. Telling somebody, hey, I'm really great. That's hyperbole. You're above. You're saying more than should be said. Huper. Bole. And then epi, and we've seen that could be ep and f. We talk about an epicenter of an earthquake. It's on, epi is on, so this is where the earthquake hits. And then apa is away from. So apostasy is like away from. Stasis is like what is stable and centered. So apostasy is moving away from that. So anyway, I'm just pointing out that again and again, you'll find that when you learn Greek, it will really help you with your English vocabulary too. On the last page of your master chart, you will find a list of prepositions, and you'll notice that most of these we've already met in John 1. But here they're laid out spatially in a way that can be helpful, at least to some students, so it's worth taking a look at. At the risk of being overly committed to detail here, let's work our way top to bottom. So ana means upwards or up. Huper means above. Epi means on. Peri means around. And then look on the left side here, we have these arrows going in, toward, among, and through. Okay, so pros is to or towards. See, it stops at the circle. Ace means into. Dia is through. Now, of course, we have in, which just means in, okay? And then looking at the arrows going away, we have apa, which means away from. Ek, which means out of. Para means alongside of. So that's this line right here. Hupa is under. And kata is down from. Now we have a couple here that really aren't spatial at all. Mata just means with or after. And anti, which we saw also in John 1, means instead of or for. Now, these definitions are not the full range of definitions of the prepositions, but they give you a place to start, and they can be very helpful. Just a couple more things about prepositions. In your little Greek grammar, you'll notice that the meaning of the preposition can change depending on the case of the object. I realize I just spouted gibberish to you. Okay, when we get into nouns and we start to understand case, then we'll understand what I was just talking about. But just to realize that for now, okay, so when we come to that, you won't be completely shocked. So I illustrate that. And then on the next page, I went ahead and just put in more detail the full range of possibility for many of the Greek prepositions. And you can see that the translations of prepositions is fairly flexible in Greek. So take a look at those, and you'll see that sometimes just the simple spatial diagram one that we were looking at doesn't quite make sense. So understand, Greek prepositions are very flexible.